Good morning, everybody. It's such a pleasure to be here sharing our story with you today. I'm going to be talking about two things primarily. So first, I'm going to be talking about our employee values, so the behaviours and the ways of working that we attach the most importance to in working at Harrods. And then, very relevantly, I'm going to be talking about our employer brand, so what we want to stand for as an employer in 2019 and beyond. So, back in 2018, at the end of 2018, our wonderful Chief Customer and Marketing Officer, a hugely inspirational lady called Amanda Hill, shared with the whole of Harrods her vision for the Harrods brand. And she gave us this beautiful articulation of what we want people to associate with us as the Harrods brand in 2018 and beyond. And she introduced us to this notion of the art of the possible as our brand ambition and our flame. And I just want to take a moment to give you the definition of the art of the possible, because I think it will serve as a really useful preamble for what I'm going to talk about today. So the definition of the art of the possible is the application of human, creative skill and imagination to create something remarkable, something magical, and something memorable. And you'll note that I have put emphasis on the word human in this definition. And that's because for me, the word human is the most important word in this definition. And it falls to me, as Head of Employee Experience and Employer Brand, to work out how we connect all the relevant humans in the context of this definition, so all our colleagues across Harrods, how we connect them to the art of the possible so they believe in it and they understand how to meaningfully play their part. And I'd always intended to do this through launching new employee values and a new employer brand. But I'm really aware that words like EVP, brand, purpose, they can feel very overlapping and very fluffy to people that sit outside of comms, outside of HR, and outside of marketing. So before I went gung-ho and launched all this stuff, I wanted to create some kind of consistency in our understanding of what we mean by all these terms and how they all fit together. So what I decided to do back at the launch of our employer brand and values in February of this year was tell the whole business a story. And this was a story that my mum had told me about 2 or 3 years ago. And it was a story that really helped me simplify the potentially complex and join all the dots. And today I'd love to share that story with all of you. So randomly, I'm going to start by introducing my mum. Isn't she lovely? So her name is Pat Jones. She's 72 years old, and she lives in a lovely little village in Norfolk, where she spends her time looking after other people's dogs. She volunteers in soup kitchens. She sings in choirs, literally any single choir that will let her through the door. She's there, mouth agape. And she runs nostalgia clinics for people with dementia. So Mum is just, a wonderful, wonderful lady, and I'm so very proud of her. And she was a wonderful mum to Fiona, Kieran and me growing up, my brother and sister and I growing up. And now she's a wonderful nana to her 6 grandchildren, 2 of which are mine, Lola and Finn. But she was also a wonderful career role model for us. So Mum's had a great career. She started out as a nurse, then she became a social worker, then she taught social work. She even actually, incidentally, this woman has taught customer service to wheel clampers and traffic wardens. I mean, who does that? But she eventually worked her way up to be the CEO of a global social care organisation. So Mum has positively impacted people's lives and transformed lives the world over. And I'm so very proud of her. But it's none of those roles I'm going to talk to you about today. It's actually the time she was the manager of a residential care home for older people back in the late 1980s. So I'm going to take us a million miles away from the world of luxury retail that I now inhabit, and to a time when I was actually just a 12-year-old girl. And this was a brand new role for Mum, and it was a brand new home. And I can still remember the new smell as she took us to look round. And the home was called Margaret House. And the role came to Mum at a time when she had a really clear philosophy around caring for older people. And her philosophy was all about enablement. So Mum felt that in order to preserve people's fitness, their independence, their mental health, that you shouldn't just do everything for them. And she wanted Margaret House to be a place where older people could live independent lives, and they would be encouraged and enabled to do as much as possible for themselves. And not everyone was up for that in the caring profession, because actually enablement is a lot harder than doing stuff for people. As I know, with my beautiful, delicious, challenging, demanding 5-year-old son, Finn, when I'm trying to get Finn out of the door in the morning, it's so much easier if I do his hair, his shoes, his uniform, his teeth, than if I enable Finn to do all these things for himself. That could take all year. So not everyone was up for this change, and Mum found that despite talking about her vision a lot, sharing the direction, she just wasn't getting the traction and seeing the behaviours in action. So she went back to the drawing board and she thought to herself, okay, so what are the key behaviours or the facets of behaviour that are going to be the most important in driving my ambition? And she came up with 4 things. The first one was patience. You know, stuff is going to take longer, it's going to be harder, so we're going to have to prioritise how patient we are. The second one is kindness, and it's been great to see the resurgence of this kindness movement over recent years. And I listened to a podcast last week that talked about how it makes so much more commercial sense to put kindness at the heart of your business as much as it does humanitarian sense. But in the caring profession, kindness has just got to be the starting point for everything. The next one, empathy. And this isn't feeling sorry for people, this is really putting yourself in other people's shoes. Except Mum didn't put herself or get her team to put themselves in other people's shoes. She got them to put themselves in other people's wheelchairs, or their Zimmer frames, or their mobility scooters. She got them to walk around blindfold so they knew what it felt like to navigate around Margaret House when you can't see. She got them to live in the Margaret House the 2 weeks preceding its opening. So she took some empathy to really practical and tangible lengths, but for brilliant reasons. And the final one is respect. I'm just going to pause on respect for a moment, because respect is a really important personal value of mine, and I'm going to explain why. So I'm talking a lot about my mum today, because she's got a great story to tell, but I also had the most wonderful dad, and his name was Tom McSweeney, and he was Irish. He grew up in County Cork in Southern Ireland, and he moved to England when he was in his late teens. And he worked for BP all his working life, and he lived in London for a long time and lived a bachelor's life. And he never thought he would get married. He met my mum, who was 25 years younger than him, very late in life. And they get married, and suddenly 3 children come along, and life takes on a whole new meaning for my dad. And very sadly, we lost my dad when I was just 19, and I was at university in Leeds at the time, studying for a law degree that I've never used. And I used to go up and visit my dad at the weekends in hospital. He had lung cancer, so he was in hospital for a long time in a place called Hexham in Northumberland. And I would go and visit my dad, and I would sit there for hours on end, just holding his hand. And for the most part, the nurses were amazing. But there was this one nurse, and she used to drive me crazy, because she used to speak to my dad like he was a child, or like he was a puppy or a dog. And she used to call him Tommy, and his name wasn't Tommy, it was Tom. And I used to get really upset listening to this woman talk to my proud, intelligent, kind father like you would talk to my 5-year-old son, Finn. It was like she'd lost all sense of respect for who he was because he was dying. So respect for me, since then and before then, but even more so, is such an important value, and it was for my mum. So it became Mum's 4th value. Oh, being premature. And Mum, what she did, she launched these values. She paid special attention to living the values herself and role modelling the values herself. She connected people in different roles across Margaret House to the part they could play and how the values were relevant for them. But what she did that was really clever, sorry, I just need to have a drink. That was really clever and really ahead of her time, actually, was she brought the values to life using stories. There was a reason for me telling you that story about respect, because in the same way, my mum used stories that people could relate to and people would remember to bring each of these values to life for people all across Margaret House. And the weeks and the months went on, and gradually Mum started to see a difference. And that difference was soon validated, because when people came to look around Margaret House, be it that they were considering living themselves there as a resident or for one of their loved ones, it was never my mum who showed them round. It might have been Mum's team or the people that worked in the kitchen or the residents themselves where mobility permitted. But no matter who showed them round, every single person heard the exact same thing. Because when they came back to Mum for a debrief, every single person said the exact same thing. We love how you here at Margaret House help older people live independent lives, and you do that through living your values of patience, kindness, empathy and respect. And right then, Mum knew she cracked it, because when the top-down vision, purpose and strategic direction spontaneously mirrors what is being said organically by all of your employees, that's when you know you've made those all-important connections. And that is what I want to do with our employee values. So Amanda, our CMO, has called for us to believe in the art of the possible, to challenge all convention around what is and is not possible, and turn delivering and creating possibilities into an art form. Our brand needs us to be masters of luxury, experts of the exceptional, and creators of magic. But in 2019, brands can't just be turned on and rolled out and sold to the masses. In 2019, brands need to be genuinely and authentically people-made. And in the case of Harrods, people-made by all of us who work there. And that's where our values come in to show us the way. So they are a direct map to our brand values. We have 5 brand values, 5 employee values. But what I've done is I've brought them to life and expressed them as behaviours that we can all understand and intuitively apply to our roles, no matter who we are, what we do, or where in the organisation we sit. And how we launched these values was really important to me. So I've told this story, so I've created this consistency in our understanding of how everything fits in. But what I wanted to do was to launch in a really relevant and meaningful way. So I recall back one organisation I worked for, when they launched their values, there was a big event, they launched at a big business update, just like we did, and there was the CEO on the stage with a female celebrity. So 2 white people, very middle class, probably very wealthy, both in their 40s, standing on the stage, broadcasting this message around our new values to people all over the world. And I can remember being really torn by this event, because on the one hand, I was so proud, that we had our CEO giving his visible sponsorship to these values. And I was so proud of the scale of the event. The technology and the infrastructure was enabling the message to be broadcast really effectively and really loud all over the world. But what I struggled with was the message itself. I guess what I was struggling with is, what does this actually mean for me if I am a software engineer out in Bangalore, or I'm a customer service agent in Cardiff, or I'm a field engineer knee-deep in groundwater down in Yeovil? Could I be forgiven for thinking these values aren't really for me, they're more for head office? There's no one I can relate to on that stage. There's no story that really is about my role. Yeah, I think they could be forgiven. So that experience made me determined to do 2 things. One was to launch each story as a value, each value as a story, stories that people could relate to, stories that people would remember. But as my daughter Lola will tell you, a story is only as good as the person telling the story. And I didn't want loads of senior directors on the stage telling other people's stories. So I wanted there to be some kind of authenticity and vulnerability to the storytellers, so they could connect in a more emotionally powerful way with the audience. So I went on a quest to find the stories, but the storytellers I wanted to either be the subject of those stories or someone who was connected to the subject of those stories, be it a colleague or a customer. And I found 5 very brave storytellers. So for the first time at a business update at Harrods, we had people on the stage that weren't heads of department and directors, but they were people from the food hall, people from the shop floor, people from L&D, people from our architecture practice. And as our 5 storytellers bravely took to the stage and told their stories, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. And as they can't be with me today, because we open in a few minutes, I am going to play you a video that hopefully brings to life the values that we have launched.
As Herodians know, within here is to help each other and support each other.
The willingness to collaborate and to work together as a team is just out of this world.
Every role is just as important as the other.
Be yourself, be curious, ask. You are always supported by your colleagues and by your manager, by anyone like next to you.
We are a part of a family, so everyone will help each other out.
And we work as one, we are one.
Everyone has the opportunity to provide a little bit of magic to the brands.
Everyone here is honest, trustworthy, and not only that, every time we have a customer, from the moment someone's on greet, we say, hi, so you've built that relationship, and that's what it's all about.
Doesn't matter if you're buying like one pen from the gift shop or if you're buying like a pair of shoes from like 7K. We treat every customer in the same way.
We got a motto, nothing's too small, nothing's too big,
We get our salary, okay, but sometimes like be nice with people, it just goes for your soul.
That's why you give 100% because you receive 110% back.
It's true.
It's all these stories you hear about people doing things at home. Oh, madam, I'll come to your house and measure your bed for you. It's those things that you couldn't tell someone to do. They would just do it. These people are the right people for the right place.
My customers want to shop with me. They come in for the people. I buy into people.
You have to know about the heritage and the history and be able to really feel passionate to work in a company like Harrods.
It's that sense of pride. You're part of something special that, it's a little cog in a very big machinery.
I can have a bad day, and as soon as I get out of that tube and I look up at where I work, I just glow.
Great, so now I'm going to talk about our employer brand. So we've got people all over Harrods believing in the art of the possible. They're living our values. They're delivering the brand promise for us. What's the promise that Harrods makes to all our colleagues in return? And employer branding matters. You heard it here earlier. And it matters today as much as it always did. We've been talking about it since the 1990s. McKinsey coined the phrase the war for talent back in 1997, but it matters today as much as it always did. And for me, it matters for one big reason, like customers, candidates, colleagues, clients, stakeholders. We don't exist in a vacuum, and we expect all of our interactions with brands to be in keeping with our expectations. And for us at Harrods, it doesn't matter if we're buying something in store, or we're applying for a job, or we're buying something online, coming in for an interview, calling up to customer services, or interacting with a Harrods branded van on the M4. These are all ways in which I experience the Harrods brand. And we need those experiences to be, in the case of Harrods, to be exceptional, but also to be consistent, because it's the consistency that builds trust. And we are nothing without the trust of our customers and the trust of our colleagues. And with everything going on in the world today, we just want to transact with, consume from, and work for companies we can trust. And when I first joined Harrods, the employer brand was all built around this notion of be Harrods, be exceptional, be compassionate, be unrivaled. And I just didn't like it. I didn't like it primarily because I don't like being told what to do. As my long-suffering husband John will tell you, you tell me what to do, I will do the complete opposite. But also it made me feel like, am I going to have to change who I am to grow and thrive at Harrods and conform to something that's not naturally me? I'm not up for that either. I'm really, really happy being Viv. And I also felt it's all exclusively focused on Harrods. I mean, what about the unique contribution that I make in all of this? But moreover, I really felt that we were missing a trick. I'm so proud of the diversity, the personality, the eccentricity of our people all across Harrods. And I felt that not having an employer brand that was in celebration of that was doing ourselves an injustice, actually. And I was really keen for us to move to something that recognises and celebrates and acknowledges the magic that happens when the wonder of Harrods is brought to life by the wonder of all of us. So I'm going to share with you where we've landed with our new employer brand proposition.
It's that little buzz that, you know, 5 minutes to open.
When you see people queuing outside the doors, and then you know literally, okay, it's almost time to open, and then you see them flooding, that's probably like the good anticipation. That's what gets the blood flow going. That's when you know the day has started, and it's going to be one good day, definitely.
It's like a countdown to a rocket launch, and for me, that's how it should be. Blast off, Harrods is open.
We have that uniqueness, we're different, and when we're together, we're just Powerball around us.
I think they feel the drive that's behind everything, the drive to succeed, the drive to go above and beyond, and that makes them unique here.
There's no place like Harrods.
That you're in this place like magical, and we can make anything possible, no matter where you've come from or where you're going. We're going to make that work somehow.
It makes you feel so
Special.
good, yeah, exactly, special, that you're able to bring someone's dream to completion and, to make their dreams happen.
I love the place. It's my home. I like to think it's my home.
It makes me happy when others smile.
It makes your job worth it.
Harrods let you be who you are.
Be yourself. Be the person you are on the street.
Every single person has a story behind them. Every single person has something about them that is unique, that catches your eye.
It is everything from who you are, where you come from, your story.
Your character.
I love Harrods so much, and with that, you become part of a family.
And for me to say I work there, even when I grow old and grey, I can say to you, I worked for Harrods. I worked for Harrods. That was the last job I ever had. I worked for Harrods. For me, it's emotional.
The magic here is, it's not something that's just said, it's something that's felt.
I don't want to work anywhere else. I'm Harrods, Harrods is me.
So our new employer brand is Uniquely You, Together Harrods. We believe that what makes us all unique, that's what makes Harrods exceptional. And when we live our values together, that's when we become unstoppable, and that's when customers will experience the art of the possible. And what I want to do now, just to, this is Christian from our food hall. He's a lovely man if you're ever in there. What I want to do briefly now is to give you a few pointers in case any of you are embarking on a similar journey. This is some of the stuff I've learned along the way. So number one, and it sounds really obvious, but it's so important, make sure leaders and managers are good to go. So I spent a lot of time doing individual and group sessions with leaders and managers at all levels of the organisation. We gave them a big pack, a box full of launch collateral and a toolkit. We wrote the art of hiring, the art of welcoming, the art of setting direction, the art of appreciation. We run focus groups and training sessions and train the trainer sessions across the business so the people all across the business could start from day one to bring the values and the people promise to life with integrity. Number two, launch with a story and keep on telling them. This is Layla. Layla works in women's wear and she's amazing. We use Layla's story to launch our value, we are human. And Layla's story was told by her dear colleague, Fidosa. And Layla's story was a really emotionally powerful story because it was the story of a customer that had been burned in an acid attack by her partner and had a burn all across her upper body that she was very afraid of, and it was defining her. And it was through an interaction with Layla one day that completely transformed how she viewed her own body. And I just want to read you a quote from that letter. I'm not going to tell you the whole story, but It has taken me ages to wake up. I can't explain how wonderful that young lady is. Her words have changed my life, and I now go out embracing my burn as if it's a part of who I am. I would very much appreciate it if you could let Layla know the impact she has had in turning my life around. So Layla's story was wonderfully powerful in connecting people to We Are Human, but also creating the platform and the inspiration and the impetus for others to want to come forward and share more stories. And we've had this organic groundswell of storytellers popping up all across the business. Signpost big things to come. So give people reasons to believe this is more than just a poster on the wall or a fancy presentation. For us, we were able to launch 3 kind of symbolic and quite transformational things for Harrods. One was a new approach to how we dress at Harrods, Dress for Your Day, which is massive for Harrods given our kind of history and tradition. The second one was the launch of Workday, which launched on Monday of this week, which brings an opportunity to give another level of trust and empowerment to the front line and managers across the business. And the third one was Agile Working. So historically, Harrods has been very London-centric, very office-focused, and we've been able to say, actually, we want to embrace a new way of working and be much more agile and modern in how we approach kind of our workplace and people's deliverables. So we were able to launch these things that help people know that we were serious about the culture that we were committing to be. The next one is join the dots in a really simple way. The more you all speak about how everything fits together in a really simplistic and consistent way, the more it becomes the narrative by which you live. For me, it was so simple. The art of the possible is what we strive for every day. The values are how we play our part. And uniquely you together, Harrods, is what we get back. So the more people can say the same thing, the more it creates that groundswell that becomes how things are done. And lastly, celebrate your people. So throughout my research, photo shoots, filming, I met so many people from Harrods that are so really invested in Harrods, and so many people who've got what I call to the point of personification, where Harrods has ceased to be an organisation or an employer or a shop, and it starts to become a person, a member of their family, who they care about and they're fiercely loyal to. And those people are very special. And one of those people is Michael, you'll recognise probably from the video. And Michael is our butcher in our food hall, and Michael is our face of our value we build trust, because he has customers that will only ever buy from Michael. He has customers that book their holidays around Michael's availability to be in store and Michael's shift. He's got a customer, Miss Funky, who has delayed her flight back to Nigeria on multiple occasions just to be in where Michael is. And Michael has dyslexia, so Michael really wanted to be on stage with me sharing his story at the Science Museum when we launched, but he didn't want to read something out. So I interviewed Michael about We Build Trust and his customer stories, but also about his connection with Harrods, which he describes as a love affair. And he loves Harrods, but Harrods really loves Michael back. But what's been lovely about Michael's story is that he credits his recent recognition and celebration from Harrods with repairing his relationship with his mum. Because of his dyslexia, school was tough for Michael at times, and he wasn't always on the right path. And he's had a turbulent relationship with his mum and dad, but he credits the fact that Harrods has shone a light on his story with repairing that relationship, because his mum's come to the realisation that actually, if Harrods is so proud of my son, perhaps I should be too. So find your people who have got to the point of personification, spotlight them, share their story, and give parents all over the world reasons to be proud. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hi there, I'm Trevor, and my job is to sort of moderate any Q&As. We've only got a few minutes, but I want to sort of try and pack in a few questions if we can. Thanks very much to everybody who's using Slido already. If you're not using it, slido.com, type in the conference code, TEConf19, and start asking your questions. We've got some great questions in already, clearly inspired. I love the story about your mum.
Oh, thank you, Trevor.
And Tom and John and your son and everybody's.
Whole family.
And the whole family sort of was involved in that. I mean, did you, one great question here is, it's great to see the team sharing their stories at Harrods. I mean, did you then go on and involve the wider team in actually creating the values, or were the values there first, and then you got the stories to illustrate that?
No, people across the business were involved in uncovering the values. I mean, Harrods hasn't had employee values since it started, like over 150 years ago, which was one of my biggest surprises when I joined the business 18 months ago. So they're very much uncovered and created in partnership with the mother brand work that was going on, but the employer brand work that I was doing, but focus groups across the business.
Right, and one other question that we've just had in, so do you have a mechanism in place for actually capturing future employee stories? Because, you know, those are great stories, but then new stories will probably need to come along at some point, and getting those new ones in.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we do. So part of the way that we're going to welcome and celebrate new joiners is through what we call their Uniquely You. So we want people to share what is unique and distinctive about them when they join, and we have a 2-day induction event that everybody joins, and they're going to be sharing their stories at that induction event. So it's something that we're building formally into induction and onboarding, but we're on a constant quest for stories. Like I am, you know, out there trying to find stories all the time, both using our social channels, but also to celebrate our people internally.
Yeah, another great question comes around sort of the issue about empowerment and the tendency for any business, even a sort of fast-moving sort of retail business, to otherwise get bogged down in processes. I mean, you talked about the creators of magic. I mean, how do you have sort of do you have examples of how Harrods has enabled employees from the bottom up to be the sort of creators of magic? Do you feed these internally within your business to encourage managers to sort of enable people, to encourage them to not only appear on the big screen, but also do it in their little sort of daily work as well?
Yeah, like we encourage, we have kind of a team briefing every morning in the store that assistant managers and sales managers do, and we talk about magic moments and we celebrate magic moments. And the day before, we've got this WhatsApp group and Microsoft Team group that is all about magic moments. And magic moments don't have to be wrapping up an elephant and sending it to the other side of the world. You know, magic moment the other day was someone came in, she'd obviously just run the marathon and she had her kind of medal on. So one of our sales associates, you know, recognised that, went and got her a teddy bear and a gold bar and just created a moment for her. So it's the little things that we kind of encourage and celebrate as much as those big moments of truth for customers.
Has there been a moment, you talked about the moment with your mum, where people came in and were actually able to talk about what it is exactly people did, and that was the moment where she'd cracked it, if you like. Has there been a moment where you thought, yeah, I think people really get this now?
Yeah, lovely moment. So when I'm out on the shop floor, which I do a lot, I'm hearing like people say spontaneously, I'll get that for you, we are one, you know, using the values and playing the values back. And, you know, we have got people, you know, coming up to me all the time, wanting to tell me stories about how they're living the values. So my husband hates me because when we go to this certain supermarket every week, on the trolleys it says our values like make us and make the difference. So I always ask the checkout assistant what their values are. Nobody ever knows. So yeah, for me, my quest is for every single person on that shop floor to be able to answer that question with integrity and colour and story.
Fantastic story, and what a great story this has been. So I mean, if you could thank Viv in the usual way, that would be fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Thank you. That's my work.
Thank you.